Hey guys, just doing a quick video for compound interest using TVM solver, which is exercise 7b.3. Not doing this live. There was a couple of teething problems while projecting to the screen, so I had to redo it after school. I'll get used to that as we go. So the more commonly used form of interest in the real world is called compound interest. Compound interest is still calculated with a set interest rate like simple interest, but there's these things called compounding periods. Interest is calculated each compound period, and unlike simple interest, that interest, each period is added on to the principal. So what you see is that the principal is constantly growing, and the interest is also constantly growing. If you really want to see how it works differently to simple interest, you can watch this video linked here, just for awareness, okay? You don't need to know the theory of the difference between simple interest and compound interest for year 12. But if I was running the class, I would have played that video so you can see the difference is that when interest compounds, in compound interest, it gets added to the principal. Now, there is a formula for compound interest, but the SAYS outline only says that you need to use electronic technology to calculate compound interest. So the application that you use to find the answer to compound interest questions is called this thing called TVM solver. Now, my last year, 2023, was pretty successful in my class. So like last year, I'm going to completely skip any timeline questions asking you to do compound interest by hand. So you will ignore exercise 7b1, 7b2. So first thing that you should note down, you should go on your cheat sheet if you don't remember how to do it, although you're going to hammer this so much that you should just remember it. How do you access TVM solver? On a Texas Instruments graphics calculator, you press the apps button. It is in purple here. Apps, you select 1, finance, press enter, and then you select 1 TVM solver. If you've got another branded calculator, I'll show you how to access it. For you individually, you'll need to note those instructions down yourself. I'm going to go with Texas Instruments because that's the default for our school. Now, the other thing that you need to note down, you'll probably get good enough at the questions not to need these notes, but I teach from scratch. So start off with the hard way. Start off with knowing all the information, and then you practice, and then you decide what needs to go on your cheat sheet. So how do you use TVM solver? When you open TVM solver, you'll see a screen like below. Here it's been filled in with numbers already. The defaults, if you want to start from scratch, are all 0, except for the bottom 2. The bottom 2 will stay at 1, because they don't let you be 0, okay? Defaults are 0, 2 ones at the bottom, and end for PMT. So what does N stand for? Is the total number of periods. Now this is based on PY, it's based on whatever this number is. So when you find out what PY is, which is the number of payments, well, N will represent the number of payments in total. It's only going to be based on PY if these two are different. In SAYS, these should remain the same, but in real life, they don't need to remain the same. I want you to be able to use TVM solver in all aspects. So even when these two figures are different, if they are different, N is calculated on the basis of PY, which is the number of payments, okay? But in your SAYS exam, PY and CY will be the same. I is the interest rate as a percentage, so no conversion. So 5% is just going to be 5 here, not 0.05. PV is the principal or the present value. PMT is the payment each period. FV is the final or the future value, which is the principal and interest combined together. PY is the number of payments per year. CY is the number of compounding periods per year. And for our purposes, for SAYS, PMT, and begin, it must be on N. Never change it. Keep it on N. Considerations when using TVM solver. What you do is you enter all the known information from the question into the associated variables that we've just shown you what they mean. But please note that PV, PMT, and FV are positive or negative depending on the direction the money goes. So TVM solver is from your perspective. Always imagine yourself. So if the money is moving away from you into the bank, then PV, PMT, and FV are negative. Okay, even though it's your money, because it's coming from you going to the bank to go and undergo compound interest, it's going to be negative. Now, if you're getting the money from the bank, then PV, PMT, and FV are positive. You need to keep those in mind. They actually matter for your calculations. And also, please be careful. You do not use the take sign to make things negative. The calculator will freak out, okay? You need to use this minus or negative sign to make things negative in the app. What's another consideration? Once all the known variables are entered, select the variable you're trying to find, then press alpha, this button here, the green, and enter. Why? Because you want to solve, which is in green there, for the answer you need. So if I'd put in all the information and I wanted to find what the account grows to at the end, I'd highlight FV after putting all the variables in, then I'd press alpha and then enter to solve for it. And really, this should be in bold and bright red. Because the calculator is doing the maths, you must show working. You must show what you put into TVM Solver. That is the working out in this topic. If you get the wrong answer and you don't show any of the TVM Solver entries, I can't give you credit for that. You just automatically get 0. So always show every entry and put a star next to the thing that you solved for. That is how you're going to do maths for the finance topic. Another thing to note is because you're going to be using TVM Solver heavily for compound interest questions, you need to keep in mind that TVM Solver never tells you the interest amount. It only tells you what you started at, PV, and what you finished at, FV. So when you have a compound interest investment, you're putting money in the bank and the bank is paying you interest. So to calculate compound interest on an investment, this is the general gist of it. The interest on an investment is equal to what it grew to, the future value. Take away any money that you put in. But remember that you've got an initial amount, the starting amount, and also payments. So there's 2 parts to the money that you put in. At year 12, the payments made can be an initial amount and any regular payments that you put in. So 2 aspects to payments you put into the bank. So ultimately, the interest on an investment is equal to what it grew to, take away any starting amount, plus any repeated payment times by however many times you made that payment. Okay, so this in brackets represents all the money that you put in, which could be the one-off starting payment and multiple repeated payments. You take that away from what the account grew to work out how much interest the bank gave you. All right. Normally, if this was live, you would have had like break times to write those things down. But because this is a redo, I'd suggest you pause and get down any of these notes in blue that you need, accessing, using, and the interest formulae. But now we'll do some examples. So I'm starting my, oh, it's frozen. App freezes sometimes. I'm using a phone to emulate that, so it freezes sometimes. Let's do an example. Julia invests $23,000 in an account that pays 3.45% per annum, compounding quarterly. A, how much will be in the account? How much is in the account is FV, so I'm solving for FV. I need to put in everything else. So what information do we have? She invests $23,000, so PV, that $23,000 is going from her to the bank, so it's going to be negative $23,000 as PV. Is there only going to be PMT? There are no regular payments, so PMT stays at 0. It's compounding quarterly, so PY and CY stay the same, unless the question says they're different. They were going to be 4, because there's 4 quarters in a year. The interest rate was 3.45. And then we need to work out N. And the cool thing with TVM Solver is you can do maths in here. So it's 6 years, but it's the total number of periods. And there's 4 periods a year. So you can go 6 times by 4, which is 24. So we've chucked in everything that we want. So we highlight the thing that we want to find. FV is $28,264.50. So that's the working out that I need to show. N is equal to 24, I is equal to 3.45, PV is equal to negative 23 grand, PMT is nothing, star next to FV because that is what I solved for, $28,264.50, rounded to 2DP, PY and CY are both 4. When you do TVM solver working out, you must have an answer statement. So therefore, there will be $28,264.50 in the account after 6 years. That's A. B. How much interest? You have the interest formula. Interest on an investment is equal to what it grew to, $28,264.50 minus PV, which is $23,000, plus any repeated payment. But there weren't any repeated payments, so it's going to be 0 times by 24, which will just be 0. So it's going to be $28,264.50 minus $23,000, which is going to be $5,264.50. If you want to quit out of TVM solver, you just press second mode to quit. $28,264.50. Make sure I'm not doing any stupid arithmetic mistakes. So $5,264.50 in interest. Okay, example 2. For how long must Betty invest $15,000 of 3.8% compounding half yearly for it to grow to $2,000? So, TVM solver question, because it's compound interest. If you do the practice, you'll get the hang of this. You just chuck in all of the variables, PV, PMT, FV, PY, and CY. Which of these variables is most representative of time? Not the interest rate, not the starting amount of money, not the payments, not the final value, not the number of payments per year or the number of compounding periods per year. It is the total number of periods. If it ever asks you how long, it's going to be N. So I'm solving for N. I'll put stars next to that. The interest rate is 3.8%. Investing 15,000, so that 15 grand is going from Betty into the bank, so negative 15,000. Doesn't say anything about Betty making payments, so PMT is 0. How long does it take to grow to 20 grand? So FB is going to be 20,000. Why is it positive? Because at the end of the term, that money is going back to Betty. PY and CY for how long? Compounding half yearly. How many half years in a year? 2. So you have to keep that in mind. The units for N are going to be half years. So for the how long, I'm not just going to spout what N is. I need to work out how long, how many half years that is, and I can convert it to years if needed. The question doesn't ask for that specifically, so I can say half years, but no one talks in half years. 3.8, negative 15,000, no payments, grows to 20,000. Half yearly, so 2. N is going to be alpha solve 15.28 2dp. Answer statement. Therefore, Betty must invest her 1,000 for 15.28 half years, which is 15.28 divided by 2, which is 7.64 years. The question hasn't asked me to do all this, but I just want to show it as an example, which is 7 years. And how do I convert 0.64 years to months? Well, 0.64 times by how many months in a year? 12. 7.68 So equals 7.68. 7 years and 7 full months. It's close enough to 8. 7 years and 8 months, basically. And approx 8 months. That's an example, so I need to do it in blue. That's it. So that gives you an idea of how to use TVM Solver for compound interest questions. You're skipping a number of exercises. You are starting at exercise 7B.3 today to practice getting good at using TVM Solver. Hopefully that helps you out, and see you in the next video.